Hello everyone, I am back. I've been having exams lately and had a 1 month and a little more break in between uploads, and for that I apologize. Nevertheless, today I have another cheap Chinese watch to review. With me is, in my opinion, the best Tudor Black Bay Homage in the Chinese market for now. With the Tudor Black Bay being one of the most affordable luxury watches that you can get at the moment, Tudor, unbeknownst to some, is actually the sister company of Rolex. The whole point for the creation of Tudor was that Hans Wilsdorf, one of the creators of Rolex, wanted a watch brand that created watches of similar quality to Rolex, but was also affordable at the time. Thus, Tudor was finally registered in 1926 and has had a fruitful history along with her sister Rolex. Today, Tudor makes relatively cheap and good tool watches in a retro-ish style, one of which is known as the Black Bay. The Corgeut Black Bay Homage I have here was purchased back in August for around $96 US. I managed to get the version with the Seiko NH35A movement ticking away in the back. The Corgeut Black Bay Homage is sized similarly to the regular 41mm Black Bay and not the 39mm Black Bay 58, a watch that I think would fit my wrist better. The Corgeut Black Bay comes in with a thickness of 14mm, which is not too thick, but still pretty thick for me in my opinion, and has a rather large lug-to-lug of 51mm, 10mm more than its approximate diameter. The watch has polished sides and a brushed top surface with a beveled edge between the two, and has an aluminium bezel insert that sits in a unidirectional 90-click bezel that for once has a bezel edge that matches the one on the real Tudor Black Bay, something that the other big brands like Pagani Design and St. Martin does not have in their homages. Despite all these positives, there is one very unfortunate flaw that may turn many away from buying it, of which will be discussed later. The build for this watch is actually not too bad. The case is made of what is claimed to be 316L stainless steel and feels sufficiently heavy. The sides are well polished and brushed surfaces are definitely well finished, albeit not as well as on the real Black Bay. The watch comes with a smoothly domed sapphire crystal with a very slight bit of anti-reflective coating on the top. Around this crystal sits a clicky but extremely smooth 90-click unidirectional bezel with what seems to be a metallic near glossy red aluminium bezel insert, contrary to the dark metallic red on the real red bezel Black Bay. The bezel also has an edge made like the real Tudor Black Bay, a rare sight in most Black Bay homages. The signature bezel edge is, in my opinion, one of the things that make me like the Black Bay a lot, along with the snowflake hands that Corgeut did very well. Yes, the bezel is not finished as well as the real Black Bay, but hey, it's only around $100. Frankly, it's quite bang for the buck if you ask me. The crown to the right of the case is large just like the real Black Bay, but is finished very generically and has the signature red spacer underneath it. The big screw down crown makes it really easy to screw out and screw in, and also to wind the watch as well. Besides the case and crown, the bracelet has its pros and cons as well, which I will further explain later on. The caseback on the Corgeut Tudor Black Bay Homage is just like it is on the real watch, a flat brushed solid piece covering up the NH35A at the back. This brushed solid caseback is common on most Rolex and Tudor models, but gives this Corgeut Homage a claimed 100 meters of water resistance. The solid caseback has Rolex's proprietary screw design and can only be opened by a Rolex caseback dedicated tool. The bracelet has extreme pros and cons, that being really surprisingly good points and really bad ones. First of all, the good news. The bracelet is really well made. The links are super smooth against each other and feel heavy. The links are brushed well and have clean and smooth finishing along the edges and is a very comfortable wear on your wrists. And here comes the bad news. Firstly, the bracelet pins. The bracelet pins have one-way screws in them which screw into the other side of the link. When I first got the watch, the pins were really easy to resize, but when screwed in tight prevented the links from moving. As the link becomes looser after wearing, the screws followed, slowly undoing itself over time. Fortunately, this can be easily fixed with a thread locker like Loctite. Another bad point about this bracelet is the finishing on the end links. The opening for a spring bar tool is not very well finished and can be sharp at times. This does not affect wear, but still does confuse me when compared to the great finishing for the rest of the bracelet. The clasp is another part that I like to point out. The clasp mechanism is great, similar to the clasp on the real Black Bay. They even used ceramic balls for the clasp click points, just like the real one. However, when I took the bracelet off, I noticed a somewhat big issue. The fact is, despite the clasp being undoubtedly smooth due to the ceramic balls, the whole clasp is actually bent towards one side, which is quite sad to be honest, but does not affect use. The dial is also another part with great extremes, made to nearly imitate the dial on the Tudor Black Bay with its retro-inspired design. The curved wordings on the dial match the one found on the Tudor Black Bay Rose, showing off a 200-meter water resistance of which the Homage does not have, and the automatic movement of which the Homage does actually have. These wordings are printed well and can be seen easily. The markings around the circumference of the dial along the hour markers also have the same quality of printing. The hour markers have a beautiful rose gold finish and are centered properly into their positions, but the 12-hour marker seems to have its lume not centered properly. As we look closer around the circumference of the dial, we start to notice something really odd. The second markings are a bit off. Yes, that is the unfortunate truth. This has happened with many of the pieces that Corgeut has sent out. The dial is actually, so far as I can tell, not centered properly and has more spacing on one side of the dial from the case than the other. This is due to Corgeut using a shitty plastic movement spacer for the NH35 at the back, but I'm not too sure if this is the case in the pieces with the other movements, namely the Miyota A215 and the Seagull ST16. Oh, the dial also has an option with a stainless steel finish. The movement ticking away inside the watch is the ever-reliable Seiko NH35A. As one of the most commonly used watch movements in cheaper micro-brand watches, you'd expect a decent amount of specifications for it, and you actually get it. The NH35A comes with hand winding and rotor winding capabilities, and also a hacking seconds hand with a date function, ticking away at 21,600 beats per hour. The NH35A is known by many as a very robust movement. This watch does however come with other movements, the other two being the Miyota A215 and another well-regarded Japanese movement that sadly does not have a hacking seconds hand but does somehow cost more. Though I must say most of my Miyota powered watches have a higher accuracy than that of this NH35. The Seagull ST16 on the other hand is a hit or miss. With it being made with lower tolerances, you stand a higher chance of having your watch die sooner. Despite the watch being rather cheap at around $110, the lume that comes with this watch is rather good. It comes close to the likes of Seiko's lume in terms of brightness but takes longer to charge and lasts a shorter amount of time. And this time I can finally show you the ability of the lume of the watch I am reviewing with my trusty new black light that occasionally loosens and stops working. The watch is priced at around $110, which is pretty low in the wide variety of homage watches out there. For this $110, the quality that you get is actually quite significant if you overlook the small flaws like the misaligned dial and bracelet issues. Qualities like its really nice bezel, its domed sapphire glass and its Seiko NH35A. This watch is well worth it in my opinion, however there is another issue I should address. One major problem I had with Corgeut was the service. See, my watch arrived not functioning properly, skipping about 3 minutes a day. I contacted Corgeut, the official store, on a Thursday, to which they did not reply but have seen the message. At that point, I thought they were ignoring me, and so I decided to start a dispute, not knowing what evidence I can give to AliExpress for the issue, since the watch is technically still functioning, just not very well. This dispute was cancelled and I was told to speak to the seller instead. I decided to send them another message, to which the seller ignored again for a whole day. The next day I contacted AliExpress and after a small explanation, the seller finally responded, offering to send me a new watch if I could send the watch back. However, they would not pay for the shipping costs, which would cost almost half the amount of the watch, and also I would risk the watch getting lost in transit. So I asked if I could just have the watch repaired for a small refund of the repair costs, to which they essentially replied with, "No." I got fed up, so I went to a local watchmaker to have it repaired, the problem turning out to be a broken hairspring. Luckily, a few more chats with AliExpress staff and a picture of the broken hairspring resulted in me being refunded the cost of the repair. The whole ordeal took about a week to solve. Moral of the story, do be mentally prepared for something like this to happen if you order from this store. Anyways, hopefully soon I will be able to make more of these videos for you all and be able to get into more interesting topics in the world of watches too. Besides this, I'd like to wholeheartedly thank you all for watching and hope you all have a good Christmas and holidays ahead. Once again, have a very nice day.